गणानां त्वा गणपतिगं हवामहे कविं कवीनामुपमश्रवस्तमम् ज्येष्ठराजं ब्रह्मणां ब्रह्मणस्पत नः शृण्वन्नोतिभिः सीदसादनम् ॐ महागणपतये नमः.
Hi, this is Paula Gloria, and this show is called Farther Down the Rabbit Hole, and we're meeting you here at RabbitHoleCentral in Gramercy Park.
And here are all the rabbits.
Yes. And
Love this little rabbit hole.
we've just watched something together about relationships, and I realized my primary concern is what is our relationship to knowledge? Because what's really alive with me right now are healing methods. I have a very good friend who's very sick right now, and I have had the great privilege of finding out about ozone therapy. And here's a book about it, Flood Your Body with Oxygen, by a guy named Ed McCabe, but he's not a doctor. Meanwhile, here's a book by a doctor who's an oncologist in Italy saying cancer is a fungus. And this man who's not a doctor, his thinking is not so precise, although the information is very exciting about ozone. This man went into the philosophical foundations of why our society is the way it is. In other words, if people are sick, how do we make sick people better? And is the body the only part of what it means to be a human being? So what I'm saying, I want to launch this discussion with the idea that a relationship is first of all a relationship to knowledge. And after that relationship, when we have that knowledge, what do you do with the knowledge? Well, I think you want to go out and share it. And so then you have to work on your relationships with others around you and the society and take into account how that society is put together. Otherwise, your relationship won't be effective. So that's my 2 cents about this discussion and my concern about the relationship work. Molly, what was your feeling about Michael Jascz and what he was talking about? Or anybody else?
No, don't start
I
with me.
just want to get into why Molly feels she doesn't deserve a wonderful life.
It's not that I don't deserve one, it's just that whole word sets up this whole idea of...
Could you sit over there and not buy my underwear for the shot?
No. I deserve to be here.
Okay. Let me, I just want to show my underwear. Okay, go on.
We can put something...
Oh, no, that's fine.
No, we can put something up.
Okay, right now I have a friend that's dying. You know that's... Victoria, did you hear what I said?
No.
I've got a friend that's dying right now, and I'm taking him to therapies that are not allowed. And part of the reason that he's not taking it in is because of his relationship to his doctors. And so Molly's very aware of this thing going on, and that's what's really in my heart now. So go on, Molly. About deserving. Like he doesn't think, maybe on some level he doesn't think he deserves to live. So
but I think
this is a life or death.
I mean, to me, these guys don't agree with me, but to me, the whole MVC work has to do with
Which is
getting
nonviolent communication,
getting out of this whole idea of reward punishment. The word deserve is embedded in that whole paradigm. So that as soon as someone says, do you deserve to have a happy life? I think it's like, well, do you deserve to be paid or deserve, have you done the work? Do you deserve the reward?
Or do I deserve this person to pay attention to a remedy that might help him, as opposed to listening to his doctors? Because do I deserve that role in his life?
Have you merited that?
Yeah,
I don't have a PhD. You don't have a PhD after your name.
Yeah.
You don't deserve to give any advice.
So there is a social sanctioning about what we deserve.
Not the right word there. Deserve means I don't know if it doesn't mean anything. We're just what?
We can hear you from here. I'll zoom in. Okay, go on.
No, it's not. I think you're distorting the word deserve.
Wow. What? I mean,
you deserve a wonderful life. You know why?
Because you said so. It's based on Alan's
authority. Based on your authority.
Not on anyone's authority. Wait, I think John is because you're here.
Why do we have to debate these issues? They're not important.
Thank you.
Why don't we just do what we feel is right? You don't have to justify them. You don't have to categorize them. You don't have to deserve anything. I mean, the bottom line is we are humans. We're here. We're really spirits in Earth School. trying to live a life as humans. And really it's about accepting, and it's about love, and it's about tolerance. It's not about all these terms. These terms are meaningless. Everyone should have a beautiful life. And it's not important whether you deserve it, not deserve it, past karma. We should cut ourselves free of the glue from the past and live in the present. And do the best we can do at everything we do from the time we get up in the morning to the time we go to bed at night. And that's the best that we can do. And that gives us the justification for having a good life. And that's the end of everything. And you don't have to explain to anyone that this one's bad, or this one's this, or this one's, or should I do this, or do I have the right to do that? Of course you do.
When you say, of course you do, that carries a lot of weight because you're a doctor.
It's
When people
meaningless.
go to a
meaningless.
doctor, they want to feel better. They usually don't go until they're hurting. You know what I'm
But
saying?
a doctor doesn't have any more power than anybody else. That's a title that humans put on people.
No, it's not. It means that you've done a certain amount of work, and you know certain technical. You have a certain technical proficiency.
But all it means, it's no different from being a carpenter, a master plumber, a master electrician, an artist. It's not anything special.
Yeah, but when our plumbing's broken, we're not as concerned as when our bodies are hurting.
But we should be.
Well,
No.
we're concerned when our basement fills up, but
I have radon in my...
I mean, we should be concerned with everything equally. I mean, our bodies will be in balance if we're in balance. So let's be in balance.
So you think relationship is the foundation of physical health?
I
That's why
believe
you're
love
focusing
is.
on it. Okay, love?
It's not about relationships, it's about love. And love is about relationships.
Okay.
So, and the love starts off, he talks about, well, how do you develop self-esteem? Well, why don't we make a list of all the great things we did? That's bullshit. That's absolute bullshit. Why don't you love yourself and you'll have all the self-esteem you need?
What about Chinese medicine, Alan, from like the liver? I think the liver is for kindness and also anger.
No,
Is there
the
love? Can love be distributed to
Well,
the
I'll
organs?
tell you what Chinese say is the lowest form of healing is making someone better. The next form is keeping people well, but the highest form, according to the ancient Taoist Chinese, was to connect people to their destiny. And it's only when they're in touch with what they're here to do they achieve perfect health.
So can
That's-
people find what they're in touch
And love. And
through
deserve.
love? Or is it
Absolutely.
love? Which comes first? Doing what you're loving to do, or loving so that whatever you're doing?
You can't love anything if you don't love first. And if you don't love yourself, you can't love anything else. So you're not going to love your career. You're not going to love where you live. You're not going to love anything unless you love yourself. And if you love yourself, you're going to be able to love almost anywhere you are.
But that to me is like, to tell someone to love themselves that doesn't love themselves, that gives them no tools to work with.
The tools to work with is that you must learn to respect yourself, to appreciate yourself, to look at yourself as a whole, to look at yourself for the good parts of yourself and the other parts that aren't bad, but maybe aren't as quite developed. So you say, well, I'm jealous. I get jealous easily. Or I'm obese. Well, that doesn't mean that you don't love yourself. You embrace those things. You embrace them, you recognize them, and you love yourself for having those less evolved parts of you, and let them go with love, and then they'll evolve. Your weight will roll off, and your jealousy will go away. Because it's insecurity. Both are insecurity. You're eating more because you want to feel comfy with yourself, so you're building a cushion around yourself. You're jealous because you have to control, because you don't love yourself, and you feel that, well, why would that person really care about me when I'm not around? Well, you won't have those feelings if you love yourself. So the whole thing is connecting with yourself. The least common denominator in everything is connecting with yourself. And then you'll make the right decisions in life. Not that you're ever perfect. There's no such thing as perfection in nature, but you're going to be doing pretty well.
Victoria, do you deserve a beautiful life?
I think that, yeah, but when you say beautiful, most people might associate that with just one aspect of what life carries. It's not just about, beauty to me. When I really recognized beauty was when I could smile after feeling my heart broken. That was beautiful. To be able to feel both pleasure and pain in the same moment, or pain and joy in the same moment, and accept both, that was beautiful.
How did you do it?
I faced my fear. The hardest thing that there was for me to do, I would go and do it. Because I was, for me, I did have the idea that I was whole. I was told by someone I loved that I was perfect. Even though I didn't believe it, I thought that person was perfect. So if they called me perfect, I wanted to understand why.
So was he like a doctor of your soul in the moment?
I think it's a relative word. I don't really see it as a doctor because we wouldn't really need doctors if people knew how to take care of themselves. So in essence, he's a teacher, he's a lover, he's a father, he's a brother, he's a soul mate, he's everything that could have been played as a role to fulfill me. He played just by speaking from his heart what he felt. And I could take that, what's beautiful about it is that as time goes on, I take that as a different feeling every time I think about it, depending on my circumstance or my environment or what I'm feeling. And that's beautiful.
So that was a relationship with somebody in that moment that
But
did
actually,
something.
what it is was the idea of him opened me up to myself. Because I didn't have the courage at first to look at myself that way because I thought, hey, I might be just this, arrogant brat by saying I'm perfect. But to look at someone else say that, it gave me permission to look at myself that way.
How about that, Molly?
I think that's one way of getting there. I think that we really need more tools to do this because I think that a lot of people out there don't love themselves. And but yet when they hear all this sort of self-help, people say, oh, well, just, you're perfect, you're one, it just doesn't make any, doesn't give you anything to work with.
I think the problem is, what is the definition of the word love? And the definition of the word love is one other word: acceptance. Simple. Acceptance, accepting yourself and everyone else for their wholeness.
But how do you do it? For Victoria right now just described sort of a catalyzing moment with somebody.
Well,
I use the word doctor in reading all about medicine now. Simoncini says in some ways doctors are priests. I don't think it's bad that we have roles of authority that we shift around with each other.
everybody's
need
a
help.
doctor. Everybody's a healer.
Yeah. I think when you start taking the title too seriously, there's a problem, because that's what you're touching upon. Everyone can be seen as a doctor, everyone can be seen as a priest. These are all just words and opinions.
I disagree. If you spend a certain amount of time with your focus on one thing, like, for example, I've been in the movie business now for over 20 years. I can work lights better than somebody who's never been on a set before. You know?
And when you need that done was what it is.
Okay, but here's my question. Have you ever encountered someone just on their first try who did this amazing lighting without any technical
No.
ability?
Never.
Well, I mean, I think there's also a distinction to be made between talent and skill. You know, sometimes you're born with a certain talent.
But you
can
still
develop
have
it.
to develop it.
But again, it comes
Mozart
down,
did it.
you know, well, I'll say something to what you said about
Alan.
perfection.
Somebody taught him how to play the piano. His father taught him.
But when
he
you-
was a child prodigy.
When you talk about perfection, you look at nature, right? You could say that it's chaotic, but if you go further enough to see the scale that you're looking at, it will hold an order. It will hold a perfection. You can look at the trees, may not be growing particularly straight compared to the other ones.
The tree comes from a complete lineage of trees that have been evolving for millions of years.
Where do you come from?
I don't know, but
Where's your DNA from? Not your
Same
mind.
thing,
I'm
Molly.
obviously
Molly, same
thinking,
thing.
but obviously the focus has been here for a million years supposedly. So what I'm saying is that focus helps.
Of course it helps, but what are you trying to... what prevents you from being able to focus on yourself?
That's a different question.
But that's my question.
No, but what I'm saying is that you're saying to disregard, labels, being a doctor.
I think just a second.
Don't hold them too solid as if there's nothing else to them.
Okay, here's one reason I seem to be holding it too solid, okay? It's because I have a good friend right now, and
You said that 4 times now.
I know I've said it 4 times, but I'll say it 5 times. Well, okay,
No,
Molly,
just say
since
it,
I said it
Paula.
so many times, tell me, I'm on you. What should I do? Because it makes me feel really bad that he doesn't have the capacity now to think clearly. That's how deteriorated his health is. He can't think clearly. So he depends on authority.
Well, doctors are just practicing, as far as I'm concerned.
No, this is not the doctor. This is a patient of a doctor.
I know, but
Yeah.
I'm just saying that as a patient, you just have to realize that doctors are
No,
practicing.
But what do I tell him? I'm not the patient. I'm the friend. What's my relationship
All
to
you
the
can
patient?
tell him is that what you feel and what you would like for him to do, but it's got to be it's his decision fundamentally.
I understand that. I understand.
What do you want from him, Paula?
You constantly seem to me that you always have these opinions that you enforce on other people, and
Right.
and that that's where I get irritated at you because I don't feel like I'm free to do what I want to do because you want me to do something else.
He feels the same way.
You've got to let go.
He
What
does.
you have to do is this. I shouldn't say what you have to do, what people have to do.
What's your opinion on
If you
it? Go ahead.
really care, if you really care for this person or anybody else, just be there for the person. It's not for you to dictate policy, George Bush, or to tell him what to do and what's good for him, George Bush.
Well, you don't think that you can give your educated opinion and say that this is what I think is would be the best thing for you, but it's not to me to make that decision.
Of course.
I think that
And
there's
then just be there, accept his decision.
Right.
I think that there's also something to be said about being able to listen to people's opinions. Just because you hear an opinion doesn't mean you have to follow it. It's like people.
But what if time is really limited?
Well, it's
He's
all
dying.
relative.
He's
It's
dying.
relative. What reason do you have for him to live? If he doesn't want to live, why do you want him to
No,
live?
the
He
reason
does wanna
people don't
live.
want to live is because there's a blockage on an emotional level. It's not that no one doesn't want to live. I think people get stuck,
there's
and
not-
what
there's
you
not
can
a-
help him overcome that emotional stuckness, and then
It's not
change his
emotional
destiny.
stuckness.
What
He's
is it?
actually very clear. It's exactly like what Molly said. He doesn't like to be told what to do by me, who's not a doctor. And yet,
It's not because you're not.
But you're helping him. It's not about you, aren't? Isn't the treatment helping him?
yes, it's so dramatic.
You're not telling him anything.
But
you're
the
showing
thing
him
is, if he
something.
just stopped taking the medicine, he would get better. But if he stopped
But you
taking the
can't
medicine
make- you
and
you
did
don't
it,
know that either.
well,
You know
if you
that.
read the descriptions of the medicine, you do. But you
Right.
can't find
I don't
doctors.
But what the problem is that it's not. You can't lead other people's lives for them.
Thank you, Molly.
Even if
Thank
you were
you.
even if you were a medical doctor, right, and you had those, great letters after your name, even the doctors can't get patients to do what they want them to do.
Patients have rights.
No, I completely disagree with that. If I was a doctor, or if there was a doctor that would stand up for this evidence and would take a look at it, he would defer to it, as he should. Doctors study; they deserve that.
Yeah,
they
but not-
deserve just
Well,
like
let's ask the
lighting.
doctor.
You're talking about lighting. I'm talking about
No, but just like
Ask the
there are
doctor.
3 different ways to light something. You ask 3 different doctors and you'll get 3 different opinions.
Ask this doctor
Not on
right here
this.
for his opinion.
I hate to put you on the spot
Paula,
about
but
this,
wait,
because
wait.
doctors don't step up to the plate on this, and I think you know that.
No, I think all doctors are different. The bottom line is this. It's the patient's choice to live, die, or to choose whatever he wishes or she wishes to do. It's not the doctor's, it's not anybody else's. All you can do is present what you feel is the scientific evidence. You can add your opinion, which may be experience, and then it's up to the patient. Then your only responsibility in life, being a good Buddhist even, is to just be there.
What if someone says, you're wasting your time to do a treatment as long as these drugs are being taken? And you talk to the therapist, and they agreed too, but the therapist said, well, we have to be patient because it's a lot for him to shift, because he has to walk away from his relationship to his doctors that are socially sanctioned. So it's more than just not taking medicine. It's letting go of an entire relationship to society and how society is put together with doctors at the top.
Well,
at the top.
You're picking on doctors now. The bottom line is that's
Well, it's
not
because
true.
it's a medical situation.
Yeah. The bottom line is no different than an abused wife or an abused husband in a relationship.
An abused patient?
No, an abused wife or an abused husband in a relationship. It's the same thing. They have the right to stay in that relationship. The reason
Right.
they don't want to leave is for the same reason this patient doesn't want to leave. But the thing of it is that's the person's choice. It's their choice.
It's a good analogy about a husband and a wife. A husband and a wife got together. There was a socially sanctioned ceremony, and whether it was religious or whether it's even common law, you're not just walking away from a person. You're walking away from your relationship with all the society that's had a relationship to that relationship. See what I'm saying?
I think the question also is, I think it's more than just a doctor-person relationship. I think there's something deeper emotionally that all of us, whether we're conditioned with it from childhood or not, to have someone take care of you gives a sense of security. And to know that
when
they're...
you're sick, you need someone to take care
Right,
of you.
but-
You can't make it to the subway station.
But what I'm saying is certain people might feel more comfortable. I think you asking him to sever that relationship.
No, he's asking me
But
to spend
just the
6
way that you
hours.
projected it so
But
far.
you
that-
have to then take total responsibility for him, Paula. You have to be the doctor, emotionally.
And that's what
Are
I'm
you ready
saying.
to do that?
Well, that's right.
Are you ready? Are you ready to do that?
Well, if I take somebody to therapy for 6 hours a day for 10 days, and if he dies, I've still learned something.
No, it's not about
I've
you.
seen what it does.
It's about him.
I know you take responsibility. I'm very sensitive about
That's
that.
what doctors...
Now, if I don't want to take responsibility, I can just say, this is hopeless.
No, it's not hopeless.
No, I can because I've been told that.
But it's not hopeless.
Somebody who cares about me doesn't want my heart to be broken or my time, or
So you say...
doesn't want to see me disappointed.
But
So says, Paula, this is you can't sever that.
But you're saying to this guy, if he stops taking his medicine, he's going to get better, right?
I started to research what he was taking. I looked at what the side
But he's not believing...
Here we have a doctor here.
But you're doing the same thing doctors do if you're just doing research.
I don't have any problem with
It's
doctors.
against the law to do what you're doing. You're practicing medicine without a license. That's where there is a difference, and that's
You need
where
to
the
give
degree
advice.
has. You cannot tell people to stop their medicine. You go to jail for that.
Because it's illegal.
You can't practice medicine without a license, and that is the domain of the physician to practice medicine.
Okay.
But practicing medicine is not the only way to heal people, and also.
By practicing medicine, you mean about herbs and plants and things that you put in your
Practicing
mouth?
medicine is what's controlled by the medical community.
Okay.
And telling a patient to stop their medicine, you're practicing medicine without a license.
Right.
You go to jail for that.
Okay.
So you should not do that.
Okay.
But that's doctor's domain, and it's the patient's choice. You're trying to override the patient's choice, and you're trying to override the doctor's training.
Okay.
Because you read some books.
But if the patient decides not to take his medicine, is he practicing medicine
No.
without it? Because it's
his decision to make. But if he goes to his sister and says, stop your medicines, now he's practicing medicine without a license.
Mm-hmm.
So he can't do that.
Okay.
Just remember, freedom of choice is the most important thing in the world.
Now, what if you live in a society where you feel the doctors aren't taking the responsibility to study the research?
I think that's irrational.
You don't think it's possible?
doctors are not studying
don't-
research.
And you don't think that courts have been advised by peer-reviewed journals that have blocked studies? You don't
No,
think that's possible?
I think that most doctors, when I say most, that's more than 50%, are doing their job as
Okay.
doctors. I don't believe that the doctors in any particular society have abandoned everything that they're supposed to be doing. I think overall, medicine has lost its empathetic touch and compassionate touch, but that's because the way medicine is structured today. Medicine today is structured by the court systems and by people's demands. Everyone knows all the answers now, so they're dictating to doctors what policy should be. And slowly, doctors are evolving towards that and giving in, which they shouldn't.
Everybody knows. What does that mean? That's a big statement.
People come to doctors already knowing what their treatment should be.
How do they know?
Because they all go to computers and they all said they read and they all say they're intelligent, but they have no training.
But if they share that, then they're practicing medicine.
No, they're practicing medicine when they control someone's therapy.
So you're allowing people to control therapy because the people that you're giving that privilege to, licensing, have passed certain tests that they deserve that authority.
Oh,
because we need
they
that
did their
authority.
training, right. But what I'm trying to say is, if you want your ozone therapy or whatever, and I'm sure, I will bet my life, that there are studies being done on this somewhere in this country or the world.
In 1931, a Nobel Prize was given to Otto Warburg. So you could envision lawsuits in the future, negligence, for being aware of this.
No, it has to be standard of care. But the thing of it is, and it's not, but I am sure studies are being done. If you really want, if you have a therapy that you're concerned about, that you want to study, it can be studied. But the only way it makes sense is to do a scientific study, not just one case. See, that's where people fall apart.
Anecdotal.
Anecdotal is worthless. It's absolutely
But
worthless.
I mean, like, for example, with
It's not
radon therapy, there's been, I mean, low dose radiation. Supposedly there's
3,000
been
studies.
3,000 studies, but
We have to look at these studies.
Well, we'll
No,
do more. But meanwhile, what about people dying right now?
It's not a concern.
And what
It's
about
not-
an HIV test right now? There's 5 different tests, and the disclaimers in all of them say that this is not a test for HIV.
You know,
So in
I'm
a court
not-
of law, they're protected.
All I can tell you is this. There should not be a sense of urgency about anything happening anywhere. Everything is in due course. Everything is in time. Will people die? Is that unusual? Haven't
Right.
people died right along in the last thousands of years? Less people die today than they did 10,000 years ago or 20,000 years ago. In fact, maybe more people should be dying when you look at what we're keeping alive. Because what is the definition of life?
Yeah, I understand. I
Okay,
mean, you wouldn't
so
put animals through some of the
we wouldn't
therapies
put
people are in.
animals- We put animals to sleep because we love them. And we
Yeah.
keep 113-year-old women, I saw one the other day, alive,
Yeah.
who is nothing more than a carcass.
Is that woman conscious?
She's conscious.
Does she want to live?
She wouldn't know what she wanted.
So there you are, ladies and gentlemen. This has been an episode of Farther Down the Rabbit Hole, and we've been considering the role of relationship, particularly as it relates to helping each other. Thank you for joining me.
We'll keep that rolling.
I
Because
will.
you told me a story the other day about doctors really don't do research and they just kind of...
No, I never said that.
Oh,
There's
what
lots
did,
of
no,
research being done.
no, you said they had to ship a woman somewhere. I mean, it's like, last night. It's not that they didn't do research, but most doctors go in and say they have a horrible day because they're not
Well,
excited
they're not
by their
happy- they're not
job.
happy what they're doing.
Exactly.
But most people aren't happy what they're doing.
Mhm.
And it has nothing to do with what they're doing. It has to do with the people.
Right, but if a doctor's not happy with what they're doing,
Why
they're
is a
not
doctor
doing
any
the-
different than a carpenter?
Well, they're not helping
Because they
people as
can't
much
practice
as they could.
medicine. They can practice medicine. They can learn something that helps someone that's hurting.
How about
That's
the carpenter
different.
put this floor in? If he doesn't do a good job, what happens to us? His job is as important as the cardiac surgeon's.
Oh, for everybody's job is important, for sure. But it's just when your physical body's hurting,
Makes
it's
no
different than your
difference.
than
your
your
emotional
house.
body is just as important as your physical body.
No, because if the carpenter does a bad job on the floor, you can just walk around the hole. But if
And
there's
they fall
something,
through the floor.
yeah,
And end up 3 stories down.
yes,
And
but
then
if,
that's a medical issue.
yeah.
And a lot of legal
Well,
issues
eventually,
as well.
but eventually, the study of law, philosophy, and religion was all one study, and
Right.
medicine is right up there with one of the great studies about the harmony of the universe and creation,
But wouldn't we all
and it's
be-
our access to the divine. When our body is functioning well, we can access divinity.
Then we should
When
take
we're
care of
hurting
it.
and when we're in pain.
Actually, I disagree with that because you'll find that a lot of people have actually accessed divinity through the pain and through the suffering and through not being healthy. So I don't actually think that's 100% true. I think divinity is within you regardless of what you're feeling. It's just a question of acknowledging it.
Well, that's true. They say that One of those guys.
Ramana
Ramana
Maharshi.
Maharshi.
Ramana Maharshi?
No, not Ramana Maharshi.
I think it was
the other guy.
Ramakrishna.
Ramakrishna,
Right.
yeah.
Tell him that story.
The story of Ramakrishna was that he was seeing the Divine Mother every day, but at the same time he had some festering cancer on his back that had maggots in it that they were taking out. You know, every
Maggots are
day.
good for festering.
What does that mean,
So they
though,
should have
Paul?
kept the maggots on.
What does it mean, though? The fact that he was suffering and... What are you saying?
It seems as though that particular soul was working with reality in such a way that he wanted the fullest experience, and he had the fullest experience.
So are you
He was able to have... Excuse me?
I was going to ask you, are you trying to get... I mean, do you feel like one of the things you're doing, because I can feel from you, you have a great sense of your own connection to divinity. So I'm wondering, are you facilitating other people's connections to their own divinity through different processes and different knowledge that you're finding out?
Yeah, actually this person that I was talking about, that, you know, people look away when they see him on the street as we're going to the subway because he's that degenerated. He has a huge soul and a huge soul connection, you know. I feel that. And I understand these things about everything being in perfect order and people die. That's true.
Talk about what Swami Kaleshwar says in his practices. I think Victoria would like that. As far as the huge soul and soul practice.
I don't know what you're thinking of something that I'm
No,
not.
when you talk about opening up to the gifts of life and what Swami said.
Well, to have the whole experience is, like you say, it's not all about sweetness and roses. Spiritual practice, particularly people who've done chanting practices. When you're chanting, you're bringing down big energies. You know, in a way, you say, when you say the name, the form is there. So you're chanting the name, the deity, the God is there. And so people feel that vibe, and it's a profound experience. But to take that and then start to channel it in the organs, because the whole body is created, you know, following how the creation rolls out. So where your liver is and your stomach and your kidneys and the intestines, it's all part of that harmony. So when the Vedas are read, they're read with a rhythm and a harmony. You have the rishi who's doing it, you have the deity. The deity can oftentimes be the topic, and then the meter with which this knowledge starts to be exchanged. So you've got the relationship of the rishi to the deity, the worshipper to what he's worshiping, and then that rhythm is the process that brings that knowledge into being. So it is a process of relationship. In a way, we think of relationship between individuals, but it's also between the conscious person and life and knowledge.
We should read some Vedas for John, just to see if he taps into the energy, pulls the energy. No, but I was telling also about Kaleshwar's, his knowledge of these higher dimensions and how to pull the energy into you. That's what I wanted you, because you spent more time at the ashram. Do you know what I mean? How to pull the energy in from the higher dimensions.
Well, everybody, I think, has an understanding of pulling the energy in.
You spent, you did 1 million mantras.
I did millions of mantras because that was the practice.
And what did it get you?
Some people think nothing.
What do you
Come on,
think?
Paul, what do you think?
cares what they
You're always
think?
trying to get me to meditate. If it didn't have any benefit for
What
you, you wouldn't try to get me to do it.
What did 1 million mantras do
I
for
don't
you?
try to get you to do a million
Paula,
mantras.
what did 1 million mantras do for you?
You should do.
Just
It gave me a lot of discipline.
Thank you.
Gave me a lot of stamina. It gave me the ability to break a relationship to society, because I think in many ways, when you're operating in a successful way, if you're successful with a society that's going to war and, all of the problems that we see around us, then you're not going to find the answers within the confines of that society.
Do you feel you're related to that society that you might want to disconnect from?
I didn't make that sound right if I said I wanted to disconnect from
I
it.
was
What
wondering.
I'm saying is that if you really love people in that society, and you really love the society,
But maybe that's
because
what
that's
Mark
what the
needs.
society makes, is for more love.
Mark needs to do something
Paul,
like that
speaking
to
of
break
work,
his
it's 20 to
relationship.
4.
Oh, I have to leave. It's 20 to 4.
Mark needs that to break his relationship.
I think Mark is actually, I think you're right. I think Mark is fine. He's perfect. This may be just an exercise for me to understand about a therapy.
Mm.
You know,
I think that
his relationship to his doctor is to be honored too.
I think you're learning from this relationship how to let go.
Yeah.
Something right or wrong. It's accepting.
So Paula, I'm actually not